What's up, guys? Welcome back to J Tendencies. I'm J Suave,
I'm J Reese.
and we are here with another episode this week. If you tuned in last week, I want to say thank you for tuning in again. And if you're here this time and it's your first time with us, I want to say welcome. We kind of talk about everything sports related on Tuesdays, and then on Fridays, we're just going to talk about things that really interest us.
All right, before we get into the topics for the day, let's go ahead and talk about, the past week in football, right? Like I projected, thought it was crazy. The Cleveland Browns upset the 49ers.
I did say you were crazy, but I can't say that I'm that surprised.
It could have been a trap game, but also they lost their two best weapons on offense. They lost Chris McCaffrey and Debo Samuel. So
most definitely. But then you go look at the game. Myles Garrett was being a dog. He over here throwing Trent Williams. You saw the fight before the game too. You saw Elijah Moore get his helmet and get hit off. But yeah, man, even about that game. But what about Philly, J Reese? What about your Eagles?
I'm not gonna lie, still hurts. I don't like to think about it too much, but yeah, that was such an ugly loss. We came in, we started looking real hot in the first half of the game. Up 14 to 9 at half. Costly turnovers. That's really what cost us the game, right? The Jets outcoached us. I'm not gonna lie. Robert Saleh outcoached our offensive coordinator and Brian Johnson, who didn't have an answer to what that defense was doing. He couldn't establish a run game. Jalen Hurts was playing phenomenal all game. The first two interceptions I don't really put on him because they were really tip passes. But that third interception, horrible read on a horrible play design. Late in the fourth quarter, when inside the 2-minute drill, they have no timeouts, but we decided to throw the ball, and they didn't have any kind of mesh concept, no kind of crossing routes. It was all curls to get the first down, which was a horrible play call by Brian Johnson, which, he's had a couple of those moments where, with the lead, he was a little costly with what we run and how we run it, like in Washington when he ran. We got that deep ball to A.J. Brown for a touchdown at the end of the game when we didn't need that. We needed to run the clock, and then, we went to overtime. We didn't have to go to overtime. But, I don't want to go too much into detail. It hurts. I could talk about this all day.
Yeah, but most definitely, you got to give the defense props, though. And for the last 17 regular season games, y'all have had 2 sacks every single game. At least 2 sacks.
Yeah.
And that's one of the craziest things that was said in the game yesterday. But I feel like that just kind of shows, what really happened with the offense yesterday, too. I know y'all played against a good Jets defense. But, dropping 14 points in Rutherford, New Jersey, where that team is missing their starting quarterback.
It's unacceptable.
It's not
missing
acceptable.
their 2 starting DBs, which you just can't do that.
No Sauce, no DJ Reed. Come on now.
I don't want to talk about this no more. Let's talk about the Panthers real quick. You guys you guys started off a little hot. I'm not gonna lie. I thought another upset was coming in, but tell us about that. Talk to us about that.
Y'all, I felt good for I felt good for a whole 30 minutes, y'all. We came out in the first half. Bryce played really good. He ended up having, 110 yards in the first half. Mm-hmm. And I honestly thought it was going good because up 14-0, we got Tommy Tremble hurdling over guys. We got Chuba Hubbard running over guys, scoring touchdowns. And I'm like, this guy looked better than Miles Sanders. But, after that, man, it's just Tua came out, really locked his team in. And Tyreek coming out, bro. Watching Tyreek play against your team is just demeaning. It kills your soul, bro.
Please don't say that. Next week we have to play against Tyreek Hill. Yeah. I hope not.
Most definitely, y'all are finna get killed by Tyreek.
Hopefully Darius Slay's back in the lineup by then.
But bro, it won't even matter. It's only week 6, and Tyreek Hill almost has 1,000 yards.
Tyreek Hill right now is on pace to get 2,300 yards this season, which is going to be the new NFL record, which is insane.
Yeah, most definitely, man. He just looked amazing. Tua came out, passed for 280 and 3 touchdowns, and Raheem Mostert, 2 touchdowns on the ground. I can't complain. My team was 0-5, now we're 0-6. But, I feel like it would have been a really big confidence boost if we would have got him. But it is what it is. We have a bye week this week, then end up playing Houston the week after. So we'll see what happens. You did get
a small little victory going into the bye week.
Most definitely. Frank Reich isn't calling plays anymore. So hopefully with Thomas Brown calling plays, we'll be a lot better.
All right. Let's go ahead and get into these first couple topics. The trade deadline's coming up. And as a Carolina Panther fan, what do you think your biggest need is, and who do you guys think you should target before the deadline?
Most definitely, I think our biggest need is receiver. And at the deadline, I just don't think there's really any good receivers to go for at the deadline. You got guys like Jerry Jeudy, but what's it called? Steve Smith said it first. He's not that good of a player.
Yeah.
He can't be coached, and we seen it. I mean, he had 3 receptions for
Like 14 yards or something
14
like that.
yards last week against the Chiefs. And just seeing that and everything that happened before the game, it wasn't really that good. I mean, you got Cortland Sutton. He might be traded at the deadline. It's just that no one really is eye-appealing out of this trade deadline class. I mean, I can see guys in the draft being able to, make a move on the Panthers. Even though we don't have a first-round pick, receivers can be picked any round and still be good. So I think the Panthers should definitely go receiver, but don't try to put too much effort into it. Don't put too much money into it either.
Yeah, one more receiver that you overlooked that he probably won't get traded to the Carolina Panthers, but Mike Evans, we were talking about earlier. Mike Evans, he's a really great receiver, a 1,000-yard receiver in each of his seasons in the NFL.
All 9 years.
But
yeah.
I really doubt that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are going to trade him in division. If anything, we were talking about how scary it was, before the podcast, is if you went to the Kansas City Chiefs, paired up with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, that offense would be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you never know, though. I mean, Mike Evans might need surgery for his injury he has, but I mean, with the Chiefs, they got Rashee Rice. He's looking pretty tough, and honestly, if Patrick Mahomes can keep him going, that offense still looks good with him on the offense. He's definitely developing into a wide receiver one, so who knows? It might happen, it might not.
All right. With Philadelphia, our biggest need right now is definitely that safety position. Right, the secondary that's already pretty banged up right now. With Darius Slay, he was hurt last week. We had Avonte Maddox, who got hurt I believe week 1 or week 2. He got a season-ending injury. Bradley Roby, who you had just picked up in free agency, just got hurt. Reed Blankenship, our number 1 safety, got hurt. And then we have the only active healthy safety on our roster right now is Terrell Edmonds, which is not great. That's not what you want to hear. There are 3 real suitable options that we could go out there and trade for. Buda Baker, 27-year-old safety up in Arizona. But, I don't know if the Cardinals are going to be willing to let him go so easily because, they just restructured his contract, so he's getting more money, which is what he wanted. And then he has another 2 years left on his deal. He's on IR right now. So I don't know if we're going to want to go trade for Buda Baker right now. He has 655 total tackles, 7.5 sacks, 7 interceptions on his career right now. But then another suitable option is your boy, I know you don't hear this, but
Bro,
Jeremy
don't even
Chin.
tell me, bro.
Jeremy Chin.
Don't even talk about my dog, bro.
With the way Carolina's looking right now, they're probably going to be looking to move a few pieces, try to get a couple more draft picks, losing that first overall pick that you have now, over there in Chicago since you guys traded for Bryce Young, So you guys probably would want some draft security so you can go out there, try to get a receiver in the draft, maybe, take Quez off our hands. I'd love that.
We're not taking Quez.
If you guys just want to pick him up for us. But he's 25 years old, still really young, 317 total tackles, 4 sacks, and 2 interceptions in his career. He can get going. I feel like he's already had a pretty good career so far in Carolina. But I feel like pairing him up in Philadelphia with Reed Blankenship, those real strong cornerbacks.
Reed Blankenship is not him.
Hey, Reed Blankenship is nice. He's getting a little hurt too much this season, but Reed really showed me some last season. We need just one more safety on the other side of him that will, complete us. But the one I'm really hoping that we get is Justin Simmons. He's 29 years old. He's a little older, but he's a ball hawk, right? 28 interceptions on his career, 558 tackles. I saw it against the Kansas City Chiefs, right? He was filling those gaps, hitting the run hard, right? I don't know if you saw what I was saying because you're looking at it. What I saw he was hitting those holes. He was hitting those holes when he needs to. Pause.
Most definitely, he played good, and honestly, it just seems like that DB is the only DB that Patrick Mahomes ever throws to. He's had 3-4 picks against Patrick Mahomes in his career, and even though Patrick Mahomes is 12-0 against him,
yeah.
So even if that, just Patrick Mahomes, not that guy that you'd be thinking he's going to throw a lot of interceptions, but to Justin Simmons, that boy is a ball hawk. He going to make you think and make you work.
Also, a couple notable things before the deadline. The Denver Broncos, they're they're 1-5, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're not looking great at all. You know, that whole team is looking like a disaster. And what I'm hearing is that they're trying to clear house right now. So the only people that I've heard that are safe in that organization is Sean Payton, PS2, and maybe Russ. Because I don't think Russ is technically safe. But I don't think there's going to be anybody in the league that's going to want to, trade for him with that big contract that he has.
Yeah. And they traded way too much to get him, too.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, even about the Broncos, I want to go back to Jerry Jeudy. I mean, they've been trying to go on about this guy since 2020. And following the fact that they're 1-5, they might actually take some action trying to trade him, right? So just also, I feel like trading him would kind of help the emergence of wide receiver Marvin Mims. I know that's your boy.
Yes, sir.
And having Marvin Mims really develop like that, I think most definitely trading Jeudy will help that because he'll definitely get more snaps. He hasn't really played a lot this season, but whenever he is on the field, he's efficient. And also to note that Jerry Jeudy's fifth-year option is around $12.9 million, which is very manageable.
Also think about this. Maybe a fresh start is exactly what Jeudy needs, right? Mm-hmm. He couldn't make it as a number one in Denver, which we saw, which is who they were kind of hoping he would be, the number one receiver. So maybe hopefully a team that already has that number one, solidified, maybe like a Raiders or even though the Minnesota just got Jordan Addison, maybe they can get Jerry Jeudy, try to pair him up, make him a suitable number two somewhere.
If they somehow got Jerry Jeudy, Addison, and Justin Jefferson on the same team,
crazy.
I might have to stop watching football.
All right. Some real names though that should be on the lookout before the deadline. Brian Burns, another one of your boy, up in Carolina, 216 tackles, 42 sacks. He's on the last year of his deal. They should have traded him last season. They were offering 2 first rounds for him, and the Panthers didn't accept the trade. They weren't willing to part with him. But I think right now, because I feel like Brian Burns is really the only piece of that defense that is so strong, but he's not going to want to re-sign with Carolina. He's probably going to want to go somewhere else in the offseason. So I think it's better that you guys trade him now while he still has value than him go for free.
Yeah, I mean, the Panthers weren't able to come to terms in the offseason. And after the Rams offered 2 first rounds and 1 second round to acquire him at last year's deadline, just the Panthers weren't really rocking with it. And I just think the Panthers will definitely think long and hard about it this year. He probably won't be asked for 2 first rounds and a second, especially since on the year he doesn't have any sacks and this team is 0-6. So speaking on that, it might just be rougher to trade him for real value, but who knows? Other teams might be able to use him in the right way.
Right, some wide receivers that are also in the trade talks. You got Hunter Renfrow from the Raiders, and we have Mecole Hardman with the Jets. Mecole Hardman was looking so electric in that Kansas City offense, and he only has 1 reception on the season. Like, what are you guys doing with Mecole Hardman when he's one of the guys that could take the top off the defense?
Yeah, I mean, last year he had 6 touchdowns in 8 full games. But I also feel like that's part of the Patrick Mahomes effect. Patrick Mahomes is going to get you the ball. Mm-hmm. And I hate to keep going on to that fact, but he gives everyone the ball. I mean, just coming back to a team, I mean, whenever the Jets signed him, I thought he'd be really good for the team, but he hasn't played enough snaps. I mean, he's probably, before this past week, he had only played 22 snaps, and like you said, he's only had 1 reception, 3 targets. I mean, it shouldn't be happening for a guy who played fairly decent last year.
Hopefully Philadelphia can, try to acquire him, get someone else to take off the top, give him quiz.
Yeah, most definitely. And even speaking of Hunter Renfrow, we're long far gone from his 2021 1,000-yard Pro Bowl campaign. But just even with them getting Devontae Adams, you'd feel like it'd give more room for Hunter Renfrow to really get space. He's not on the opposing team's number 1 corner anymore. Mm-hmm. But it just hasn't been the same for him. I don't know if it's just the organization or what's going on with him personally, but it just hasn't been the same with him, and just I feel like the hype is gone.
I feel you. There's one more person I want to talk about, but before I talk about him, I just want to say real quick, Derek Barnett is on the trade talks. Please, Philadelphia, for the life of you, trade him for a 7th-round pick. I don't know who would want him. I can't have him on my team no more. I'm tired of Derek Barnett. But the guy I want to talk about for real is, you being an Ohio State fan, you're going to know a lot about this guy, Chase Young. Mm-hmm. Chase Young, he hasn't lived up to expectations so far. He had that really great rookie year up in Washington. But after that, he hasn't really done much. He's been hurt. He's been not as you don't hear his name as much as you would like to. In his career he has 87 tackles, 12 sacks. Which is pretty good. But the Washington didn't think that was enough to keep him to pick up that fifth option. So what do you think about that?
I think it would definitely be a good guy to pick up at the deadline. I mean, he's 24 years old. He's still young. And just knowing, I mean, this year he recorded his first sack against Russell Wilson since 2 years ago. And it'll just be good for the team.
All right, looking at our next topic, we want to get into which teams right now would be looking to make a move at quarterback going into the next season and into the offseason. Jake, why don't you start us off?
Most definitely. I feel like there are a couple teams that are looking to look for a quarterback this offseason. But I'm going to highlight two, and my first team is going to be the New England Patriots. I've seen it. Y'all have seen it. Mac Jones has been completely terrible. Bailey Zapp hasn't looked that much better. I mean, you even see Bill Belichick's face whenever he goes on the field and plays. You see Bill Belichick at halftime. But it's just been an absolute snooze fest watching this team, So in the last 3 games, I'm pretty sure it's even worse for the last 5. But in the last 3 games, Mac Jones has been averaging 153 yards per game, has 5 interceptions, 2 fumbles lost, and they're 0-3.
Yeah.
And just having that be your team in the last, just Bill Belichick as a coach, you see the frustration with him. And most definitely, they're going to make a move this offseason at quarterback.
How about you, that last one? I know you have one more. How about you, the last one, before I go into the teams that I want to talk about real quick?
Okay, word. So my second team is actually going to be the Tennessee Titans. And I know moving at the deadline isn't one of the best things that's going to happen. You rarely see QBs move at the deadline besides, you've seen Russell Wilson. Mm-hmm. But I think the Titans definitely part ways with Ryan Tannehill in the offseason. They got 2 guys who were day 2 picks on their team. I mean, you don't draft those guys for no reason. And I feel like keeping Tannehill on the roster when he really hasn't done anything for the team, it's been Derrick Henry carrying that team. I think that challenge between Will Levis and Malik Willis will definitely be something to watch.
Yeah, for sure. 2 teams before I get into the 2 teams I really want to talk about, just like rumors and speculation, one is the Arizona Cardinals. There's been rumors since the offseason that if the Cardinals get the number 1 pick, they're going to go with Caleb Williams, or they'll be looking to move on from Kyler Murray. So I think that's just a situation to look at going forward, and I have to say a little bit more about that going to our next topic. But the other team I'm talking about right now was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield, he's looking pretty good this year. He's not making the same mistakes that he was making last year, when he was in Carolina and with the Rams and everything like that.
Y'all, I don't even believe it. I was so sick. And then whenever Baker Mayfield came out, they started off 3-1, and I was so sick, y'all. I was like, Baker Mayfield is gonna be trash with this team. Look how bad he was with us. Yeah. And you see him now. He looks faster throwing the ball. I mean, I really don't even know. It's got to be the Panthers. It's got to be us.
It's just the organization.
It's us.
It was Matt Rule. It was Matt Rule. I put the blame on Matt Rule.
Yeah.
But I just say them because I really don't think Baker Mayfield's going to be, the long-term answer that they're looking for at quarterback. I could be proven wrong. He looks like he's proving me wrong right now. But I feel like going forward, they're not going to be looking to keep Baker Mayfield for the extended period of time. They're still going to be looking, exploring their options at the quarterback position to get their real number 1 guy, especially with people like Mike Evans, probably going to leave. That offense isn't the same, when Tom Brady was there, and we all know this. And we saw this a little bit last week against Detroit. Detroit is a great team, but, you would expect Baker Mayfield to do a little bit better than put up, 6 points against the Detroit defense. Mm-hmm. But the 2 teams I really want to talk about, the first one being the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins on the last year of his deal. He's 33 years old, if I'm not mistaken. And, his name was being thrown around early in trade talks, because they're looking to move on from Kirk Cousins and build around Jay Jettas. And there's a rebuild on the way around Jay Jettas, right? They're going to want to build around that receiving core that they have Jay Jettas, they have Jordan Addison, they have T.J. Hawkinson. They're going to build around that core. And they're probably going to be looking to move on from those defensive pieces too. So the first piece that needs to be moved is Kirk Cousins, because they're not going to re-sign him. They're probably look for in the draft for one of those, because they're not looking great this season. Probably look for one of those late round quarterbacks. So this quarterback draft class this year is really great. So I'm the Minnesota Vikings. I'm looking for my franchise quarterback in that in that draft.
Most definitely. I feel the same way, but at the same time, I've also seen that they aren't going to necessarily move on from Kirk Cousins. They paid him a lot of money. I mean, he hasn't been the reason they've won a lot, but he's also not the reason why they lose a lot. I mean, you look at the games they played. I mean, of course, they beat the Panthers. They lost to the Chiefs by 7. I mean, they just won the bowl last year. Lost to the Bucks by 3. Lost to the Philadelphia Eagles by 6. I mean, lost to the Chargers by 4. I mean, like, what could you really say? You can't call it Kirk's fault. And I know there's some points in, like, the end of the games where he'll go and throw a terrible pass and completely sell the game. But, I mean, it happens all the time, man. I feel like just in general, you can't blame Kirk for things that aren't his fault. And he might be 33 years old, but I feel like they keep going on with him, especially if J Jettas gives his opinion about it. And I think he's really rocked with Kirk ever since he's been a rookie.
Yeah, I agree. I disagree with that. Just because we keep going bringing up his age, right? He's getting older, and Kirk Cousins is not one of those elite quarterbacks that will win them games. You know, you have J Jettas that will, be significant to you winning games. But if you don't have that quarterback who can make the difference when J.J. is getting double teamed, stuff like that, don't have a quarterback that will have that elite ball placement, the quarterback that will sling the rock and make the right decisions every time. Because I'm not saying there are any quarterbacks that doesn't make mistakes, right? Every quarterback in the league makes mistakes. We see it. I saw Jalen Hurts throw 3 interceptions against the Jets. I saw Josh Allen throw 3 interceptions against the Jets. I saw Patrick Mahomes throw 2 interceptions against the Jets.
You want to know who had no interceptions against the Jets?
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it right now.
That boy. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it.
But I'm just saying that Kirk is a good quarterback, and he fits what the Vikings are trying to do. But with his age, he's getting older. He's not going to be able to take those hits anymore because we saw on quarterback. If you watch quarterback on Netflix, Kirk Cousins was getting killed in that offense, behind that line. And that team isn't looking very good. That defense isn't looking great, like I said earlier. So I just think a full rebuild's about to happen. They're about to, especially if they keep playing the way they've been playing, even though they've been losing close games, they've still been losing the games, right? Mm-hmm. You want to win those games, and J. Jettis is going to be here. So when you play those better teams, you don't have your number 1 wide receiver, you're going to be looking a little rough.
But yeah, I mean, like, he gets killed behind the line of scrimmage, and I get it, he gets sacked. But whenever you look at Kirk, would you rather – I mean, I get the rebuild, but bringing in a new guy on this substance and just having him play against teams and being behind that O-line that Kirk is already getting killed by in a system he's been in for the last 5-6 years – the offense is like the back of his hand, bro.
Yeah.
So bringing in a new guy at this point in everyone's career, I mean, I don't even think Justin Jefferson is on his last year of his contract. I think they should think about that whenever he is. And just bringing in a new guy, at least right now, I don't think it would be the best decision for the Vikings.
The last thing I want to touch on is the Atlanta Falcons, right? Desmond Ridder. I was surprised when they made the move to bench Marcus Mariota last year for Desmond Ridder. I've always been pretty high on Marcus Mariota.
I'm high on Desmond. No, I'm not.
Desmond Ridder. Desmond Ridder just doesn't look great behind that. Like, you have to have such a great young core on that offense. You have Kyle Pitts, who they're not targeting enough in that offense, but that's a different discussion. They have Bijan Robinson, who's looking amazing in that backfield. He's catching the ball. He's running the ball. He's doing everything he can. You have Drake London, big body wide receiver that will go up there and snag that thing out the air. But Desmond Ridder, we saw last game in the second half, or was it just the fourth quarter? He had 3 interceptions, right? When it was a really very much a winnable game, right? And you're throwing those late picks that will that lose you the games. You're not making anything. You're not standing out to help the offense. Right now, like last week, he was the reason why they lost, right? There are people that are like Jimmy G when he was in San Fran, right? Nobody was saying he was, the greatest quarterback ever or anything like that. Nobody was calling him the top 10 quarterback. But Jimmy G was able to, win you the games. He wasn't going to be the reason why you won, but he'll play good enough so you will win.
A good game manager.
Exactly. Desmond Ridder is not a good game manager in an offense that, is not probably going to be not the best team in the league, right? But maybe a game manager would be able to help this offense succeed a little bit more than what he's doing.
But yeah, I mean, you kind of look at Desmond Ridder. He came in last season playing as a rookie. I mean, you got Bijan Robinson coming in this year, and I feel like having just a really great running back will kind of take the pressure off of him as a quarterback. I mean, you just gave Kyle Pitts his first touchdown. And even with the defeat they took this week, I mean, Arthur Smith is still kind of batting for his quarterback. I mean, I won't say that I'm high on Desmond Ridder, but I will say that whenever the game needs to be won, he'll at least try his best. Or, I mean, there's always going to be times where stuff is going to happen, but he'll definitely get something done in the game or in the fourth quarter. And I've seen it before. It might not be every game, but it'll be at least once. And I even saw it against the Panthers this year where they had ended up losing, 24-10. And I was honestly thinking that the Panthers were going to win that game, but Desmond Ritter's just over here throwing dots to everybody. But, we even had JC playing that game, but it was just a rough stretch for them. But I think me watching Desmond Ridder play that game might really think that if the right offense is in play, then he can really, actually game manage.
All right, let's go ahead and get into this next topic. And I'm pretty excited for this topic, because like I said last week, I'm a pretty big hater of this guy. Okay, do you think that the Dak Prescott era is over in Dallas?
I'm going to say this, Jaden. I mean, I want to start off by saying I do respect Dak Prescott as a man because I know that a lot of stuff has happened with this man, and I feel like a lot of people just kind of bash on him for stuff
Dak
that's
is
really
a
not his
great
fault.
guy,
Yeah.
great individual.
A great guy, but I do feel like this is his last year in Dallas. I mean, he's been here since 2016. I mean, they've been, 13-3 that year.
Mm-hmm.
Dallas was going crazy, and they were like, yeah, this is our franchise guy. And, I mean, it has for the last 7 years, but they haven't made any – they really haven't made any progress in the playoffs especially. I mean, they've been more solid than not solid. Mm-hmm. They've went 12-4. They've went 13-4. They've went 10-6. I mean, they've been better more than they've been bad. And just they haven't really made any noise since the mid-'90s, which Cowboys fans like to hang on to. But even with saying that, Dak has been kind of carried by the defense this season. And you'll see the defense, they'll go out and get 5-6 sacks a game, 2 picks, and then Cowboys win by 30. Yeah. I mean, and even you'll look at Dak's stats, and some of them weren't even that bad. A lot of defenses, well, not even. The Jets defense has been able to play really well against a lot of teams this year. Mm-hmm. And even looking at Dak, he was 21 for 28, 280-something yards, and 2 touchdowns, no picks. We've seen the best quarterbacks in the league not even do that. We saw Jalen Hurts yesterday throw 3. We've seen Mahomes
throw 2.
Exactly. It's been bad for some other teams, but Dak Prescott has his moments, but I feel like it's just been too long for him. I mean, him being in this system, they got Trey Lance in there, and they got him for a reason. So I think this is his last year in Dallas. He definitely might be on the move in the offseason, but we'll see.
All right. Short answer for me is yes. Right? Long answer for me is I want to quote Shady McCoy when he said, Dak is ass. Right? Dak is ass. Okay? Like I said before, and like Jalen said, Dak is a great person, right? I love everything he does in the community because we live in Dallas, and Dak is such a great guy in the community, right? Mm-hmm. He donates to people. He has his own foundation, and he's a big advocate for mental health, and which I am also a big advocate for. If I ever met Dak Prescott in person, which I almost had once, that's a story for a Friday episode. But if I ever met Dak in person, I'd want to talk to him because he's just a great human being. Yeah. Right. But as a quarterback, Dak isn't so great. Like if you look at his stats, 8 years he's been in Dallas, 2,600 yards. 26,000 yards, 171 touchdowns and 69 interceptions, 1,687 rushing yards, 26 tutties, with 20 fumbles, and 5 of those fumbles were lost. But he's 2-4 in the playoffs, right? Over 8 years, and people keep saying this is our year, this is the Cowboys' year. You're 2-4 in the playoffs as a starting quarterback for this team, right? That one year, when was it? Trayvon Diggs had 10 interceptions. How many was it? 10 interceptions that year?
It was definitely in the double digits.
Yeah, it was. He had double-digit interceptions. He had 2 1,000-yard receivers with Amari Cooper and with CeeDee Lamb. You had, I think, Ezekiel Elliott and
Tony
Tony Pollard.
Pollard.
They were both over 1,000 yards as well.
I don't know about Zeke,
I
but
think Tony Pollard was
yeah, it
over
was Tony
1,000 yards.
Pollard.
And y'all still lost in the first round of the playoffs that year. You had one of the best teams, one of the most electric offenses, where you had multiple people over 1,000 yards, receiving or rushing, and you're not winning the first playoff. You're not winning the bye week. I mean, not bye week, the wild card round.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's something you need to win, right? And CD, he just crumbles in big moments. We saw last year in the playoffs against the 49ers team. He didn't have to do much, right? He threw two interceptions. I think he threw a pick six too. Like, these are things you can't do with the game on the line, with the pressure in your face, with the lights as bright as they are. CD right now, CD's looking like he might leave. He's unhappy with that offense. You're probably happy about that because he might go to the Carolina Panthers. You hoping.
Hopefully, bro. Send him to Carolina, y'all. I'm excited.
CD's dissatisfied with that offense, and we try to blame Kellen Moore, but without Kellen Moore, that offense hasn't looked as good as it did at all, right? If, like Shannon Sharp and Stephen A. keep saying, if your defense isn't getting you pick sixes, they're not returning fumbles for touchdowns, and their defense isn't scoring 15 points for you, what are you going to do? How are you going to retaliate? And you haven't seen anything from Dak.
How will you respond, foe?
How will he doesn't respond? And I see it as they have a couple options, right? They release or trade Dak, and then they see what they can do with Trey Lance, right? They drafted Trey Lance for a reason. Trey Lance was a third overall pick for a reason. And he has the potential to be a great quarterback in this league. And hopefully if he's given a chance, he could, step up. Mm-hmm. Another opportunity that I mentioned earlier that I'm bringing back now is that the Arizona Cardinals might be looking to move on from Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray has not lost in AT&T Stadium in his entire career in the NFL, in college, and in high school. Like, I know that's a boost that if he goes to the Cowboys, he will definitely lose a game in AT&T Stadium. But Kyler Murray brings something else from the onto the table with his run game, with his ability to create plays with his legs that Dak can't do as well as Kyler Murray. You know what I'm saying? Also, Kyler has that arm.
And he's already close with CD.
Exactly. They have that connection they built up in Oklahoma, right? The last option is, they keep Dak another year. They tank and get a quarterback like Shedeur Sanders in Dallas, which is like the last case scenario, which I don't see happening at all. But Cowboys fans would love seeing Shedeur Sanders. They love Deion. So they'll seeing Shedeur Sanders as their quarterback. They would be, delighted. And I would hate seeing Shedeur Sanders in a Cowboys uniform because I really like Shedeur Sanders and I really hate the Cowboys.
Most definitely. And we'll see how Dak Prescott plays against the Chargers. But, however, I do want to note that the fact that Dak Prescott is 30 years old, too, and he's only getting older. So there's not that much time for him, especially since we kind of just touched on Kirk Cousins being 33.
Exactly.
I mean, we kind of made that seem like a big deal, but whenever I won't say like that old, but whenever you're getting to that age and you really have nothing to show for it, they're definitely going to go for a guy that's younger than you who shows more promise. I mean, the draft is every year. And this year they have a lot of guys coming out of the draft. We'll have to look at next year, but most definitely Dak is getting up there, and this might be his last year in Dallas.
All right, let's go ahead and get to our games of the week. All right, I have 3 games right here, and you want to go first, or should I go first?
You got it.
All right, the first game of the week I have is the Dolphins versus the Eagles. Right, I love Philly so much, and this Dolphins team scares the living hell out of me. Okay, this is 2 high-powered offenses. One of them is better coached on the offensive side of the ball than the other team, but I think our defense will be the key to victory. Both defenses really. Because if they're able to contain Jalen Hurts Miami's able to contain Jalen Hurts, able to contain A.J. Brown, if Devontae Smith bounces back from last week and has a great game, you have to factor in so many things that, the Jets did, but the Jets have a better defense than the Miami Dolphins do. Mm-hmm. So if the Miami Dolphins can key into those weaknesses that we have, like the Jets did, that will, help them get that victory. But on the other hand, if we're able to contain Tyreek Hill, Mostert, and all those speedsters they have in Miami, we're able to win the game. It really comes down to Brian Johnson. But I was really waiting for Brian Johnson to come into his own as offensive coordinator because he hadn't called, any offensive plays before in his career before this year on the NFL level. But time and time again, he just makes it hard for me to root for him. And after last week's performance, after his play calling last week, I can't support what he's doing. Running the ball, even though DeAndre Swift was having a pretty bad game on the ground with 8 carries on 18 yards. Still feed him. He's he's top 5 in the league rushing. We have one of the best offensive lines for running the ball, and he's not running the ball at all. You're making Jalen Hurts throw the ball 45 times, and we've seen if Jalen Hurts has to throw, he can make those throws, but without having a good run game, we see multiple times with different quarterbacks, you can't win a game without a reliable run game.
Yeah.
So I really hope. I think that if Brian Johnson adjusts in our defense, those key pieces that we missed this week with Slay, Carter, coming back into the lineup on defense, we'll be able to win the game. But if Brian Johnson has another game where he's calling plays poorly like he did this week, against a team that we really should have won this week, but against a much better team, and he's calling those bad plays, we're gonna lose. We're gonna lose by a lot. I really don't want us to lose by a lot, but we're gonna lose by a lot if we can't get it figured out on offense. Because their offense is gonna be rolling. We already know that.
Most definitely. They've jumped a lot of points the last 2 weeks. But what other game you got on you?
I also have the Chargers and Chiefs. Right, the divisional matchup. Herbert versus Mahomes. Right, this is the quarterback battle that we love seeing every year. These two quarterbacks, both with great arms, both with great weapons. I see the Chargers getting a win this week against the Chiefs, right? Have the Chargers ever beat the Chiefs? If I'm gonna say, I don't think they have. If I'm not,
I want to say they have, but I also want to say this. I feel like every time that they play, it's always prime time.
Yeah.
And I promise y'all, I root for the Chargers every single time. And every time I watch this game, the game will be close the whole time. But then that last drive, Mahomes and Kelsey, you can't stop it. And I remember watching it last year. It was getting to the playoff time. It was a Thursday night. And just the last drive. The Chargers were at home. They were in the powder blue. Love those jerseys. But they were definitely – the Chargers looked good, man. Herbert was throwing dots. All the receivers were getting open. But just Mahomes being able to connect with Travis Kelce, connect with everyone on that team, it was just it was such a bad last drive because I was rooting for the Chargers. And just in general, I'm hoping they win this year because I'm a big advocate for the Chargers. I honestly thought they could go all the way last year. They've always had a good roster, but last year that defense wasn't too good. J.C. Jackson looked terrible last year.
Fell off a cliff.
Yeah, looked terrible this year too.
And then Brandon Staley just so shocking. He still has a head coaching job.
Him having a head coaching job, I could be their coach if he could. But yeah, man. Just the Chargers in general. Hoping they win on Sunday, but most definitely I need them to beat the Chiefs.
I'm gonna say this on the podcast, so it's set in stone. Jalen, I bet you $5. I bet you $20 right now. $20 right now. The Chargers will be the Chiefs.
Bro, I want them to win.
I know. I don't want them to win. But I just want to say right now that I am so confident. I'm so confident that the Chargers will beat the Chiefs that I'm betting money on it. So I probably won't bet you because we both want the same team to win. Which is stupid by me.
You can bet with the Chiefs.
Whoever want to bet me, $20 right now that the Chargers Chiefs will beat the Chargers. I'm taking that bet because I think the Chiefs offense has been so slow to start the year, the first 6 weeks of the season, that I feel like they're going to struggle, especially because we saw a couple weeks ago, right, against the Raiders. That boy Khalil Mack,
6
sacks. That boy is crazy, right? And then I think, Patrick Mahomes is more versatile than, it wasn't Jimmy Garoppolo. It was the backup quarterback. It was the
O'Connell.
Yeah, and he can't get away from, Khalil Mack, but, Patrick Mahomes can. But what I want to say is that offense on the Chargers team is going to outperform that Kansas City offense, especially because those weapons they have right now was unreliable. And we see it time and time again. We saw it against the, worst defense in the league with the, with the Denver Broncos, right? We had seen that defense give up 70 points, right? And then now they're going against the best quarterback in the league, and the best quarterback in the league barely squeaks out a win against that team, And then that's all I have to say about that game. I'll let you go ahead because I might get your one of your games. I don't want to go ahead and steal one of your games.
My first game, I'm going to definitely go Lions and Ravens. I definitely think that's going to be one of the best games this week. And I think the Lions just got a huge confidence boost last week because they won 5 games. I mean, and it was 5 straight. I mean, you saw them last year. They really made that mark but weren't able to make the playoffs. But them being 5-1 at this point, and even they're playing as underdogs this week, I'm pretty sure. But I mean, they are playing in Baltimore. But I also feel like that this team is really ready to take it to the next level. I'm also gonna put. It's not a game. It's not like a crazy game that they're going to talk about this week, but I'm really excited for the Jaguars and Saints because I don't know who's for real going to win. I know you got Trevor Lawrence with the left knee injury, and I'm hoping he plays. I think
I think they ruled him out. He's expected to miss this week.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints might really win that game if that's the case, but if Trevor Lawrence were to play, I definitely think the Jags will play, but we'll be looking for more info on that. I also want to kind of touch base on the Seahawks and Cardinals. And I say that because the Seahawks and Cardinals is always a good game no matter what. I mean, we've seen games where you see whenever Russ used to play there and he's scrambling back 20 yards, tossed it to Doug Baldwin, and he went to go score a touchdown.
Yeah, I remember my favorite play against which I've always been, a pretty big Cardinals fan just because I was always a Larry Fitzgerald fan, right? Larry Fitzgerald is probably my favorite receiver of all time. But it was back when Kyler Murray was playing, and then, Buda Baker got that interception.
Yeah.
He was running down the sideline, and then you
there
just
go
see
DK.
There's a big dude.
There go DK.
Step for step, and hawks him down like 90 yards, which was crazy. But those games are always intense. Another one of those divisional games that gets intense, And
most definitely. I feel like you said, the divisional games are always intense. And just with these teams being, I feel like Josh Dobbs is definitely going to go crazy. I mean, hopefully the receivers will be good too. I mean, they got some speedy guys on there. They got Marquise Brown, Rondell Moore, all those guys.
It's going to be a tough matchup for them on that because that secondary up in Seattle is pretty good.
It's pretty good.
That
they got Devon Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen. They didn't play too bad this week against the Bengals, but, I mean, ended up losing, but it is what it is. Stuff happens. Most definitely, it should be a good game. And that's it for me, man. I feel like that's just going to be some really good games. I mean, you got the Browns and the Colts. It won't be too much of a game, I think. I think the Browns – I don't think it scores a lot, but I definitely think the Browns might shut them boys out.
Especially with Deshaun Watson coming back.
Yeah.
All right. Let's hit our top 5 teams and see how they changed. I'm going to let you go first this week.
Yeah, man. So, I mean – you want me to start off at 5 or 1?
Yeah, let's start at 5.
I think at 5. I forget who I had last week, but I mean, my top 5 teams in the league. At 5, I am probably going to go ahead and put Kansas City in there. I mean, they went out and beat the Denver Broncos this week. T. Swift was there. I mean, they weren't in my top 5 last week. And with that being said, I want to put the Ravens up another spot. I think that them boys, they're really about it, y'all.
Boy, Action Jackson.
Lamar Action Jackson, they're really about it. Then at number 3, I'm going to have the Philadelphia Eagles. Didn't look too good. I mean, they took their first loss. Jalen Hurts 3 picks. I mean, we talked about it. But, I mean, still a top 3 team in the league because there are a lot of bad teams in the league this year, but Philly's definitely still up there. Stuff happens. I mean, Jalen Hurts will bounce back. He's not one of them. He's not one of the type guys to lose and then kind of stay on it.
He's a different breed. One of one.
And they'll definitely get it together. And then at number 2, I'm gonna have the San Francisco 49ers. It was a really tough game. I really feel like, I mean, you saw Jake Moody taking pictures with his family before the game. And the pictures got released after the game, and it was just like, dang, he really missed the game-winning field goal, and his whole family was there. But, I mean, half the time, I know they miss Debo and CMC, but at the same time, Brock Purdy, he just didn't look as good this week. And that's why at my number 1 spot, I'm going to put the Miami Dolphins. And I hate to say it, y'all, because they done dropped 42 on my team, bro. They dropped 42 on my squad. But, I mean, they average 36, 37 points a game. And before this week, the 49ers were doing the same thing. But whenever you're consistently putting out numbers, man, it'll just always be good for your team. And that team is definitely one to look out for.
Yeah, man, that was a great list, man. I'm gonna start my list off pretty similar to the way you started yours off with Kansas City at 5. I think that defense is really playing great, and this is not something I thought I would say, but that defense is really outperforming that offense right now, and that's not something you want to say when Patrick Mahomes is your starting quarterback. You know,
He's got a defense this year.
He has a great defense, but those weapons on offense aren't doing it for him, and you would think that with Andy Reid still we'd be able to cook up some, but losing Eric Bieniemy has really impacted that offense way more than I thought it would have, which a lot of people would have thought that Eric Bieniemy leaving wouldn't have been as much of a problem because they saw Andy Reid, but it's really shocking us. But I still think they're a top 5 team. You can't ever count Patrick Mahomes out. At number 4 I have San Francisco, which is like a really low, because I had them at number 1 last week. But I think without the inclusion of CMC and Deebo Samuel, that offense really isn't looking great. Brock Purdy had 125 passing yards last week, and we had him in the MVP conversation, but I'm not gonna say he's just a system quarterback. He's not just a game manager because he is way better than Jimmy G was in that offense. But I just think without CMC, taking the workload off of Brock Purdy and Deebo Samuel being as athletic as he is, you're asking him to do a little too much. George Kittle isn't looking the same as he was, earlier in his career. He had three touchdown catches last week against the Dallas Cowboys, but only 1 reception this week for like a yard, which is totally unacceptable from a star tight end, Number 3, I have Philadelphia Eagles. I have them up higher than the 49ers now just because I think that even though we have had notable injuries on that defensive side, our offense is still pretty strong. Lane Johnson shouldn't be out that long, and all I really need from the Philadelphia Eagles for them to go back up to that number 1, number 2 spot is to get that offense figured out. Right, that play calling in Philadelphia is so bad, and which is crazy is it's so bad. Our stats are looking pretty similar to how they started off last season. But you remember last season how electric our offense looked, right? How exciting it was to watch that offense. You don't get that same excitement watching the offense this year, and I feel like going forward we need some of that excitement back, some of that versatility, some of that creativity that Andy Reid had them cooking up in Kansas City. Eric Bieniemy has them cooking now in Washington. Number 2, I have the Detroit Lions. Okay, Detroit, like we said last week, they're building a culture up in Detroit, and I'm all a part of that culture right now, right? Because that Detroit Lions team, that offense is looking electric. Jared Goff is looking so great, which I still can't believe I'm still saying right now. Jared Goff, a lot of people counted you out. We were saying, he should take that thing that Gino was saying last year. They had written me off, but I ain't right back. Because he definitely ain't right back. Jared Goff, we thought their career was gonna go die in Detroit, but you're proving them that there's a reason why you were a top quarterback in the league at one point. That you were the quarterback.
I feel like he still is.
Exactly, he still is, and remind people that you were a part of that Super Bowl team that they didn't win, but you brought the Rams to the Super Bowl all those years ago. My number 1 is my bad. You had something to say?
Yeah, I was gonna talk about Jared Goff, and definitely he's been good over the last season. He's had 4,500 passing yards, 29 passing touchdowns, and 4 picks, and he's just one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the league. He's made this team 5-1. And I know I didn't put this team in my top 5, but I definitely I won't say I really think that the Chiefs are better than them. I feel like going down, they will be. But however, this game this week between the Lions and the Ravens is going to be a dogfight. Mm-hmm. And whenever y'all catch us next Tuesday, we'll definitely talk about it.
Yes.
And who knows, my top 5 list might change.
Right. Number 1, I agree with you. It's the Miami Dolphins, right? That offense is looking too good. I don't know how anyone's gonna stop it. I don't know how the Patriots were able to contain them so much, and how the Bills were able to contain them so much. But right now it's looking like, crazy enough, that Tyreek Hill is the most valuable player in the National Football League. Right? There's no way you can guard him. He's doing crazy celebrations off in the end zone. That offense is just too good. That defense isn't as great. That might be a liability going forward. But that offense, I don't see how you're going to stop that.
Yeah, most definitely, man. But Yeah, man, that team is just one of the most complete teams in football besides the 49ers.
Mm-hmm.
And even with their coach, man, it's just no one's going to stop them.
Exactly. All right. And that'll conclude this episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. We really appreciate it. We'll see you again on Friday when we're talking about more stuff. Spider-Man 2 is dropping Friday. So you might hear us talk about some video games, some Spider-Man, stuff like that.
But yeah, man. Thank God for tuning in. Again, if this is your first time, thank you for staying with us. And if you've already been here, thank you for tuning in. And we'll see y'all next time.
See you guys.